Brittany, my girlfriend, well, ex now, messed around while I was footing the bill for everything. So I just quietly walked away. Now she's seeing the life I've built without her, and it seems to have shattered her reality. Brittany and I were together for 2 years. She's 25 and I'm 27. When we first got together, I honestly thought I'd hit the jackpot. Brittany was that kind of girl who just commanded attention, strikingly beautiful, oozing confidence, always seemed like she was the center of the universe. I felt damn proud to have her on my arm. About a year into the relationship, we decided to move in together. Or, more accurately, she moved into my place, since I own the house. Brittany was finishing her degree and only working part-time, so I was covering all the expenses, the mortgage, utilities, groceries, even her car insurance. At first, I didn't really mind. I saw it as an investment in our shared future. I figured I was helping her get through school so we could build something real together later on. For a while, it genuinely felt like a dream. Brittany was sweet, funny, and just full of life. She made me feel like I was the luckiest guy alive. I was working crazy hours at my job, but it didn't really faze me. I loved coming home to her. She had this way of lighting up the room. Or, at least, she did in the beginning. Those first 6 months of living together were amazing. Weekends were spent exploring new places, binging shows, just enjoying each other's company. But then, slowly, subtly, things started to shift. Brittany started to become more distant. It wasn't super obvious at first, just small things like she stopped waiting for me before eating dinner, or she'd be constantly glued to her phone instead of talking to me. Then came the increased nights out. She'd tell me she was meeting up with friends, and I didn't think too much of it initially. I mean, she was entitled to her own social life, right? But it turned into a regular occurrence, weekends, weeknights, just random evenings. I'd get home from a long day at work, looking forward to spending some time with her, only to be greeted by an empty house. And when she was home, she was either glued to her phone or heading straight to bed. No, how was your day? No hug. Nothing. I tried to bring it up once. I told her I felt like we weren't spending much time together anymore, and she just brushed it off with a casual, I just need some me time. You're overthinking things. Overthinking? I was pouring so much effort into the relationship, trying to make it work, and I was the one at fault for wanting to feel connected? It just didn't sit right, but I didn't want to come across as needy or controlling, so I let it slide. Things only escalated. I'd wake up on Saturdays and she'd already be gone. I'd get a text hours later saying she was hanging with the girls or something equally vague. I stopped asking for details because every time I did, she'd make me feel like I was interrogating her. So I just stayed quiet, hoping it was just a phase and that things would eventually go back to how they were. But honestly, it was getting to me. I felt more like a roommate than her boyfriend. I was doing everything to make sure she was comfortable, paying all the bills, making sure she didn't have to stress about money, and she couldn't even bother to spend some time with me. It wasn't even about the money, really. It was about the complete lack of effort. I remember one night in particular, I came home after a brutal 12-hour shift, completely drained. The house was dark. No sign of Brittany. I texted her, asking where she was, and she replied an hour later saying, just out. Don't wait up. That text just sat there on my phone screen, radiating indifference. No explanation, no sorry I'll be late, nothing. I was on the couch and this cold feeling coiled in my gut. It made me wonder, what the hell was I even doing anymore? I tried to rationalize it, maybe school was crushing her, or she just needed some space to breathe. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted between us. It felt like I was the only one putting in any effort, like I was investing everything while she just coasted. And the thing is, I was genuinely in love with Brittany. She wasn't just some casual fling, I saw a real future with her. I wanted to believe we were building something solid brick by brick together. But as time went on, I realized I was the only one laying bricks. She was just sitting back, enjoying the view from the foundation I was building. I started questioning everything I did. Was I being too accommodating? Was I actually enabling her behavior by always going the extra mile? I hated feeling this way, but I couldn't help it. Each time I came home to an empty apartment, or she was present but miles away mentally, it felt like a silent accusation. Like I was giving her my all, and in return, I was getting the absolute minimum. I confided in a couple of friends, and they suggested I needed to set some boundaries, draw a line in the sand. One of them even joked that I was basically her sugar daddy, just without the sugar. I laughed it off, but the comment resonated because there was an element of truth to it. I didn't want to think Brittany was using me, but the evidence was mounting. I knew I needed to have a serious conversation with her. I had to figure out if we were still on the same path or if I'd been completely deluding myself. I promised myself I'd bring it up the next time we had a quiet moment, assuming we ever had another one. That night, I couldn't help but wonder if Brittany was truly the person I thought she was, or if I'd been so blinded by my feelings that I'd built her up into something she wasn't. That question just kept swirling in my head, refusing to go away. The next few days were a blur as I tried to plan out how to approach the subject without sounding accusatory or insecure. I didn't want to come across as controlling or jealous. I just needed some honest answers. But Brittany beat me to it, and in the worst way imaginable. One night, she actually stayed in. I thought, finally, maybe we can have a normal night. We ordered food, sat on the couch, and started talking about whatever. It felt like old times, and for a brief moment, I thought things might be getting back on track. The conversation drifted to relationships, loyalty, that kind of stuff. I don't even remember how we got there, but I mentioned how important it was to me that we felt like we were on the same team. Brittany just laughed, like I'd said something incredibly naive. Then she dropped the bomb. You know, you're pretty replaceable. There are tons of guys who'd love to be with me. I thought I'd misheard her. I literally blinked and said, what? She just repeated it, this time with this little smirk like it was the funniest thing in the world. Don't get so serious, she added. You know I'm joking. Except it didn't feel like a joke, not even close. I just stared at her, trying to understand if she even realized how hurtful that was to say, but she didn't. She went back to scrolling through her phone like she hadn't just shattered whatever remained of my faith in our relationship. I didn't want to explode, so I took a breath and kept my voice calm. I asked, is that how you really feel? I was speechless. Not only did she double down, but she also made it seem like I was the problem for being upset about it. And the worst part? She didn't even apologize. She just acted like it was no big deal, like I was overreacting. The rest of that night hung heavy in the air. Conversation died down to practically nothing. I clammed up, and so did she. She retreated to bed ridiculously early, probably bristling that I hadn't found her pronouncements hilarious. I was left on the couch, a prisoner of my own thoughts, replaying the evening's events over and over. I couldn't shake this gnawing feeling, this suspicion that she genuinely believed what she'd said, that I was just another guy in a rotation easily swapped out. The next day, I tried to project an air of normalcy. I was waiting, almost hoping, for her to address it, maybe offer an apology, or even just acknowledge the elephant in the room, but nothing. She acted as if nothing had happened. She even pecked me on the cheek before heading out to meet her friends, completely nonchalant. That's when it truly sunk in. She wasn't bothered. She didn't seem to care how her words had landed, and she certainly didn't care about the growing imbalance between us. I was just there. Convenient. Interchangeable. After that, I started noticing things I'd previously dismissed, casual remarks she'd make about other guys checking her out, or the jokes her friends would crack about her being the hot one in the relationship. I'd always brushed it off before, but now it felt loaded, calculated. It felt like she was testing the waters, seeing how much I was willing to swallow. The frustrating part was I've never considered myself the jealous type. I've always operated on the principle that trust is the foundation, that insecurity is a waste of energy, but this had nothing to do with trust. This was about a fundamental lack of respect. And as far as I could tell, Brittany didn't respect me. In the days that followed, I began to withdraw. The constant checking in texts during the day ceased. I stopped asking about her classes or offering help with anything. What was the point? If she saw me as so disposable, why should I invest the effort? Yet, I couldn't bring myself to pull the plug completely. Part of me kept whispering that I was overreacting. Maybe she genuinely was joking and I was just blowing things way out of proportion. I mean, 2 years is a long time to throw away over a single comment, right? I kept trying to convince myself of that, but deep down, I knew it wasn't just the comment. It was the overall picture, the growing distance, the sense of entitlement, the diminishing effort on her part. That comment was merely the rancid cherry on top of a cake that had been going stale for months. One night, I was zoning out, scrolling mindlessly through my phone in the living room when Brittany breezed in. She barely registered my presence before beelining for the bedroom. Hey, I called out, do you have a minute? I wanted to talk. She groaned like I'd asked her to solve world hunger. What? She snapped. I hesitated, searching for the right way to phrase it. Do you even want to be in this relationship anymore? I finally asked. She stared at me as if I'd sprouted wings. What kind of question is that? Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? I wanted to retort, because you treat me like I'm disposable, but instead I just nodded slowly and said, I don't know. I just feel like we're not on the same page anymore. She sighed dramatically and rolled her eyes. You're overthinking things again. Can we not do this right now? I'm tired. That was it. She couldn't even be bothered to engage. I watched her disappear into the bedroom, the door clicking shut behind her, and the realization slammed into me, I couldn't keep going on like this. Something had to give, and soon, because I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. But before I could even formulate a plan for dealing with Brittany, life, in its infinite wisdom, decided to throw a curveball my way. A couple of days after that lukewarm conversation we had, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was a number I didn't recognize. Turned out it was one of her friends, Melissa, let's call her. Now, Melissa and Brittany were friendly but not, ride-or-die besties. So, her calling me out of the blue definitely raised my eyebrows. Honestly, part of me didn't even want to answer. What could Melissa possibly have to say that I needed to hear? But I picked up anyway. Hey, what's up? I tried to sound relaxed, but my gut was already twisting into knots. Melissa jumped right into it. Listen, she said, I don't even know if I should be telling you this, but I feel like you deserve to know. That's when I knew this wasn't going to be a friendly, how's your day going, kind of chat. I braced myself, waiting for the bomb to drop. Brittany's been seeing other people, she blurted out, like, not just one other person, but multiple guys. And it's been going on for a while now. I just sat there, phone glued to my ear, completely stunned. 10 seconds, maybe more, passed without me saying a word. I finally managed to croak out, are you sure about that? Melissa sighed on the other end. I'm sure. I didn't want to get involved, but we had a fight the other day and things came out. She's been bragging about it, like it's no big deal. She even called you her backup plan. Backup plan. All this time I was pouring my heart and soul into this relationship, and to her, I was just a safety net? Someone to fall back on while she did whatever she pleased? The thought stung. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, not accusing her, just genuinely curious. Melissa hesitated, then admitted, honestly? Because I think it's messed up. You're a good guy, and you don't deserve to be treated like that. I'd want someone to tell me if I was in your position. And suddenly, I felt like I understood something about the way girls navigate friendships and arguments. Melissa and Brittany had a history, a kind of rocky one, even when they were playing nice. Melissa always seemed a little too quick to point out Brittany's flaws when she wasn't around, and it wasn't a stretch to imagine her seizing an opportunity to see her taken down a peg. There was a chance she was exaggerating, or even making the whole thing up just to watch Brittany crash and burn. Still, the timing was unsettling. Brittany had been giving off weird vibes for months, and this felt like the last piece of the puzzle, the thing that made all the other pieces fall into place. I couldn't just ignore it. I needed to figure out the truth for myself, one way or the other. So, over the next few days I started subtly gathering information, trying not to raise any alarms. I knew that confronting Brittany without proof would be useless. She'd just deny everything or twist things around to make me the villain. So, I decided to use her own routines and habits against her. One thing about Brittany was that she was a creature of habit, especially when it came to her nights out. She'd always say she was going out with friends, but she was always vague on details, no specifics on where they were going or who exactly she'd be with. So, the next time she told me she was heading out, I casually asked, who are you meeting up with tonight? Oh, just Ashley, she replied quickly, barely glancing at me as she grabbed her keys. I waited about an hour after she left. Then I called Ashley, not to accuse her of anything or even hint at what I suspected. I just played it cool. Hey, Ashley, I said, keeping my voice friendly. Brittany said she was hanging out with you tonight. Her phone seems to have died and I can't get a hold of her. I just wanted to see if you knew what time she'd be home. Ashley hesitated. There was a long pause. And then she said, she's not with me tonight. I haven't seen her in a while, actually. Her voice sounded genuinely confused. That was my first concrete confirmation. I didn't let on anything in my voice. Oh, no worries, I said casually, trying to cover my tracks. Maybe I misunderstood. No worries, I said, hanging up. But the moment I did, a question stuck in my head. If she wasn't with Ashley, then who the hell was she with? And more importantly, where? Then it hit me, that cafe, the one she used to rave about when we first started seeing each other. A quiet little place, the kind where people went to actually talk, not to party. She hadn't mentioned it in ages, but I had this feeling, a nagging little hunch, that it was still her go-to spot. Against my better judgment, I drove over there, parked a few blocks away, trying to be sneaky. My pulse was hammering in my chest, but I tried to keep my head clear. This was just a hunch, I kept telling myself, a way to eliminate possibilities. I hoped. As I walked toward the cafe, there was still this tiny sliver of hope inside me that maybe Melissa had gotten it wrong, maybe Brittany wasn't capable of this. But deep down I knew. And there she was, plain as day, sitting at a table by the window. But she wasn't alone. My stomach lurched. She was laughing, leaning in close to some guy I'd never seen before. The way her eyes sparkled, the casual touch on his arm, the way he leaned in towards her, it was too familiar, too intimate. They weren't just friends. A cold, heavy weight settled in my chest. Betrayal. Everything I had tried so hard to ignore, to rationalize away, suddenly became impossible to deny. I didn't go storming in, screaming and causing a scene, even though every fiber of my being wanted to. I forced myself to stay calm, almost detached. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone, but I managed to snap a picture from across the street. Just enough to document the moment, to confirm my suspicions without drawing attention to myself. As I took the photo, a mix of anger, humiliation, and a strange sense of validation washed over me. All those doubts I'd been suppressing, all those red flags I tried to explain away were right there in front of me, reflected in the window. She'd been playing me, simple as that. And worse, she thought I was too blind, too trusting, to ever catch on. But the truth was out now, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. The next morning, I woke up with this weird sense of clarity. I wasn't even angry, not at first. I was just done. There was no salvaging this, no fixing what had been broken. Brittany had made her choice, and now it was time for me to make mine, to show her exactly which one of us was replaceable. I didn't waste any time. The moment I decided I was finished, I got to work. First, I canceled the automatic payments for her car insurance. She'd relied on me to handle that for months, but those days were over. If she wanted the luxury of driving around, she could figure out how to pay for it herself. Then I opened the fridge. It was practically overflowing with her favorite snacks, those specialty yogurts, her preferred brand of soda, the expensive cheese she insisted on buying but never finished. All of it was gone. I wasn't going to keep catering to someone who had been laughing behind my back while enjoying the comforts I provided. Next, I flat out told her she needed to start covering her share of the utilities: water, electricity, internet, everything. I wasn't running a free ride program anymore. She looked at me, confused and a little hurt when I brought it up, but I kept my voice even. "You're an adult," I said. "It's time you start acting like one." This wasn't about being petty. It was about drawing a line in the sand. I wasn't going to be her safety net anymore, and I wanted her to feel it. If she'd been treating me like her backup plan this whole time, she was about to get a rude awakening. It didn't take long for Brittany to notice the changes and confront me. She stormed into the living room one evening, waving a letter from her insurance company. "Why didn't the insurance go through this month?" she demanded, like I had committed some kind of personal offense. I barely looked up from my book. "Because I'm not paying for it anymore," I said, keeping my tone neutral. Her eyes narrowed and her voice took on an edge. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, and I felt a coldness settle over me. "It means you're an adult, Brittany." "Figure it out," I said, keeping my voice level, forcing myself to remain calm. I needed her to understand the consequences of her choices without me holding her hand through the process. It was her mess to own. "What's your problem lately?" she snapped back, her voice louder now, edged with frustration. "You've been acting weird, and now this? Are you seriously trying to punish me?" A short, humorless laugh escaped me. The sheer gall of her accusation was almost laughable. "Punish you?" I repeated, meeting her gaze head-on. "Brittany, you've been sneaking around behind my back while I've been busting my ass to keep things together. Did you honestly think I wouldn't find out?" The color visibly drained from her face. For a fleeting moment, I thought she might try to deny everything, to play the innocent. But then she seemed to gather herself, her spine straightening, crossing her arms defensively. "Who told you that?" she demanded, her tone sharp, but I could detect a tremor of panic beneath the surface. I leaned back in my chair, trying to maintain some semblance of composure. "Nobody told me." "I saw you." Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out my phone. It felt heavy in my hand. I brought up the photo, the one I'd taken discreetly at the cafe. There she was, undeniable, sitting across from some guy, laughing like they were the only two people in the world, like she didn't have a boyfriend, a life, back home. "Recognize this?" I asked, the question cutting through the strained silence. I didn't want to hear any lies, any feeble explanations. "So tell me, Brittany," I continued, my voice still even, though my hands were shaking slightly. "How many other guys who've been hitting on you are you actually dating? Because clearly you've moved on, all while still living under my roof, eating my food, enjoying the life I provided." Her defensiveness quickly morphed into anger, a red flush rising on her neck. "You don't understand. I deserve attention. You've been so wrapped up in work lately that I felt like I wasn't even in a relationship anymore. I felt invisible." I stood up, the movement abrupt, my eyes narrowing as I looked down at her. "You made a mistake, Brittany," I said, each word deliberate. "You took me for granted. You thought I'd just stick around, no matter how little respect you showed me. But let me make one thing crystal clear, I'm not your safety net. You lost the privilege the moment you decided I was replaceable." She glared at me, her voice rising to a shout. "You're being dramatic. Every girl gets hit on. It doesn't mean anything. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have felt the need to go out so much. Her words felt like a physical blow. Like pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. Don't put this on me, I said, my voice hard as ice. You had a choice, Brittany. You could have talked to me. You could have told me you were feeling neglected. Instead, you decided to cheat on me. That's on you, not me. Brittany's face started to crumple, tears welling in her eyes, but I refused to soften. You wanted to know what my problem is? It's you, Brittany, and now I'm done. I'm completely done. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off, raising my hand to silence her. Cut the crap and pack your things. Find somewhere else to stay. This isn't your home anymore. Not after this. The words hung heavy in the air between us for a long, agonizing moment. I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was trying to calculate, to manipulate, to figure out how to twist the situation, how to regain control. But for once, I wasn't going to give her the chance. You can't just kick me out, Brittany cried, her voice cracking with emotion, tears now streaming down her face. I don't have anywhere to go. Please don't do this. I'll fix things. I promise I'll be better. I forced myself to lock eyes with her as she stood there, trembling and desperate. Brittany, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but failing a little. I'd busted my ass to build a solid life for us, a foundation. And it turns out she didn't deserve a single brick of it. That comment of hers kept echoing in my head. There are plenty of guys who'd kill to be with me. Fine. Maybe it was time she found one of them. I was done. Her tears escalated into full-blown sobs. I watched her crumble, sinking to her knees. I didn't mean it, she wailed, clutching her chest like it would stop the pain. I wasn't thinking. It was just a joke. Please don't kick me out. I'll change, I promise. I'll do anything. I just shook my head. My voice, when I spoke, was rock solid. You made your choices, Brittany. You disrespected me, you lied to me, you treated me like I was just another option on the menu. Now you're dealing with the fallout. It's not my job to bail you out anymore. For a split second, I saw desperation morph into something ugly, anger. You'll regret this, she spat, pushing herself shakily to her feet. You'll regret losing a girl like me. You'll never find anyone better. I couldn't help it. A short, sharp laugh escaped my throat. It made her flinch. Better than you, Brittany? Seriously? You're replaceable. You've proven that beyond any doubt. Goodbye. She just stood there, stunned, her mouth working silently like she wanted to unleash a torrent of words but couldn't find the faucet. Finally, she grabbed her things, a haphazard, angry collection, and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. As the silence descended over the house, a strange peace settled in. No regret. No second-guessing. Just relief. I wasn't going to let her guilt or her arrogance hold me hostage any longer. The house felt bigger, somehow lighter. The next few days were a weird mix of emotions. How could I have let things fester this long? Why hadn't I seen the warning signs earlier? But Brittany wasn't about to let things fade quietly into the night. It wasn't her style. Within days, mutual friends started contacting me. Apparently, she was on a campaign telling everyone that I was controlling, emotionally abusive, and basically the devil incarnate. She claimed I'd kicked her out for no reason, that I'd stifled her and never let her have any freedom. I couldn't believe it. She was rewriting our entire relationship, casting herself as the victim, painting me as some kind of monster. Initially, I was pissed. I wanted to defend myself, to set the record straight, to expose her lies. But then I had a realization. The people who actually knew me, the ones who knew the real story, they wouldn't buy her bullshit. They'd seen how much I'd done for her, how one-sided our relationship had become. And frankly, anyone who did believe her wasn't someone I needed in my life anyway. Anyway, a few weeks later, I bumped into a mutual friend at a coffee shop. Small world, I guess. He had some news about Brittany. Apparently, she had moved on as expected and latched onto some rich guy. At first, I just shrugged it off. None of my business anymore. But then my friend smirked and dropped the bomb. Well, he said, drawing out the word, it didn't even last 2 weeks. Turns out he dumped her as soon as he found out she'd been living with you rent-free and you were paying for her school tuition. Guess he wasn't thrilled about being her next ATM. I couldn't help but chuckle. Classic Brittany. Always looking for an upgrade, always convinced she's irreplaceable. Honestly, I didn't feel bad for her. She made her choices and now she was living with the consequences. Justice. Finally. Okay, that's it. Over. Done. My only thought right now is hoping she doesn't try to slither back into my life and stir up more trouble. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. If there's some unexpected twist, I'll fill you in, but for now, I'm just breathing a sigh of relief to put this chapter behind me. Time to move on and upwards. This is the final update. So here's where things stand since Brittany walked out. The thing is, she always acted like she was doing me a favor being with me, but it wasn't like that at all. About a month after she left, I started seeing someone new, Rachel. She treated me with a level of respect and kindness I hadn't experienced in a long time. Rachel was everything Brittany wasn't: supportive, thoughtful, genuine. It wasn't all about what she could get, she actually cared about what she brought to the relationship. It was the first time in what felt like forever that I felt truly valued. Naturally, news travels fast, and it didn't take long for Brittany to find out about Rachel. I don't know exactly how she heard, probably through some mutual friend, or maybe she saw something on social media. However it happened, she completely lost it. From what I heard from people we both knew, she was devastated. The reality that I had moved on and she was alone didn't sit well with her. At first, she tried subtle things after the guy she left me for dumped her. Random texts, wanting to talk, even showing up at places she knew I might be. I ignored it all. I was completely over her, and Rachel deserved my undivided attention. But then Brittany decided to crank things up to a whole new level of drama. It started one evening when I heard a commotion outside my house. At first, I thought it was just street noise, but then I recognized Brittany's voice. I walked to the front door, opened it, and there she was, standing on my porch with 4 of her friends. They were all acting like I was some kind of criminal they'd cornered. They were loud, agitated. "You're unbelievable," one of her friends yelled, pointing a finger at me like I was on trial. "You think you can just toss her aside like she's nothing? You're heartless," Brittany added, tears welling up in her eyes. She looked genuinely upset, but I wasn't buying it. "After everything we've been through, you're just done with me, just like that," she said. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, trying to stay calm and not let her get to me. "What do you want, Brittany?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady and ignoring the heckling from her crew. Her voice cracked a little as she spoke. "I came here to tell you something important, but you won't even talk to me. You just slammed the door on us." Her friends nodded, offering moral support like they were her backup singers. One of them chimed in, "You don't even know what she's been dealing with. She deserves better than this." "Are you done?" I asked, keeping my eyes locked on Brittany. "Because I'm not interested in your theatrics. If you have something to say, say it." Brittany's lip trembled, she glanced at her friends for reassurance, then back at me. Finally, she blurted it out, "I'm pregnant." "It's yours." The porch went dead silent. Her friends stared at me, clearly waiting for some big reaction, but I didn't flinch. I just stood there, watching her. "Is that so?" I finally said, raising an eyebrow. "And you brought your personal posse to tell me this because..." She sniffled. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said. A knot of anxiety had tightened in my stomach and I felt genuinely lost. "Okay," I said, my voice a controlled calm I didn't quite feel. "Let's just cut through the noise here. If you're actually pregnant, it should be simple enough to verify. Show me some proof, a test result, a note from a doctor, anything tangible." I noticed her friends exchanged a quick, almost panicked look. One of them immediately jumped to her defense. "She just found out. She hasn't even had time to see a doctor yet. Are you that dense?" I turned back to Brittany, keeping my gaze steady. "Is that the truth?" I asked, making sure my voice didn't betray any of the turmoil I felt. "Because if it is, we'll figure it out and deal with it responsibly. But if this is a fabrication, if you're lying to me, then this conversation is over, right now." For a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of sheer panic flash across her face before she desperately tried to mask it. "Why can't you just trust me?" she asked, her voice gaining volume, bordering on shrill. "After everything we've been through, why would I ever lie about something this serious?" "I don't trust you because, frankly, you've given me every reason not to," I replied, my voice remaining steady but colder now. "So again, show me the proof. If you're telling the truth, we'll deal with it together. But I'm not going to entertain empty claims." Her friends started yelling again, launching into a string of insults, but I tuned her out completely. My focus remained solely on Brittany, and it didn't take more than a few seconds for her to break eye contact and look away. That brief hesitation was all the confirmation I needed. Eventually, the whole group stormed off, muttering curses under their breath and spitting out every insult they could think of. Brittany's little act, while initially somewhat convincing, had completely crumbled. I tried not to let it get to me, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't leave me feeling uneasy. What if there was even a tiny sliver of truth in what she said? A few days later, the full picture came into focus. Melissa, the same person who had initially alerted me to Brittany's strange behavior, reached out to me again. It seemed she was closely following the train wreck that was my breakup with Brittany. She assured me that Brittany was absolutely not pregnant and that the whole thing was a complete fabrication. Apparently, Brittany had been spiraling since she found out I'd moved on, and this fake pregnancy was her desperate, last-ditch attempt to trap me into getting back together with her. Honestly, I wasn't surprised, just disgusted. I immediately blocked Brittany on every platform I could think of. Whatever lies she was spreading or whatever schemes she was concocting were no longer my concern. I was moving forward with Rachel, someone who actually appreciated me. Brittany clearly thought she was irreplaceable, but the truth was she was the one who was easily replaced. As for her, I heard she was bouncing between couches and had dropped out of school after her parents refused to continue funding her. None of it mattered to me anymore.